I hate SQL. I think it's semantically unappealing and it's just not very intuitive. But LINQ is one of the most beloved aspects of .NET. Everybody loves LINQ. Now, what if I told you that you'd never have to write another SQL query again? That you could spend the rest of your days basking in the glory of Microsoft's language integrated queries. Enter LINQPad, God's gift unto us undeserved developers. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So last year, I started developing a database and strategy site for Genshin Impact, and shortly after getting started, I realized it would actually be a good opportunity to learn the entity framework, or EF Core as it's called. Now, I was under the impression that EF Core worked by generating a database from your existing models. Now, I already had a database up with data inserted into it, but I was willing to make the sacrifice to start getting my hands on EF Core. After a little bit of digging though, I realized that EF Core actually has a command called scaffold that allows you to do the reverse. Basically, generate your models or your entities from an existing database. Just super cool. And after I ran that first scaffold command and saw it generate those models, it hit me. Why don't I make an application so that you can query any SQL database with LINQ without having to use SQL? Because you have EF Core generate these models and then you can just write LINQ directly on the models. So I started building it out, and the Monday after, I'd informed my colleague of my $1 million idea. And he informed me that there's actually an application that does exactly that, called LINQPad. So I went and looked it up, and it turns out my $1 million idea was thrown out the window because LINQPad exists, does exactly that, and it does it really well. It has an integrated debugger, it has IntelliSense, it has a bunch of cool features, and it also has support for all of the SQL flavors that you'll want. But anyway, let's get into it. So to get started with LINQPad, you need to connect to a SQL database. I'm just going to connect to my local MySQL instance since I have a database in there with some test data ready to go. So I'm going to select the Entity Framework Core Multi-Provider since that supports the Pomelo MySQL package. And then just enter my credentials so that we can connect. So we can see that it's connected, and on the side all of our tables show up. Then if we select that connection, we can actually begin accessing those tables from within the editor. So here we can just select the employees directly, and it'll output it in this table format very similar to something like MySQL Workbench. So in the employees table, we can see that we have a reports to field that's the int32 type, which holds the employee number of whomever this employee reports to. But we also notice that we have something called the reports to entity. Now this entity field is actually not in the original database. This is generated by EF Core. This means that if we want the employee that another employee reports to, we don't have to do a query. We can just say employee.reports to entity. So if I just run a select on those reports to entity fields, I can see that they're all printed out. And that's basically like doing a join in SQL, but way simpler. So let's try a somewhat complex query. So for instance, say I want to get all the employees that are the sales representatives to a customer with a disputed order status. So that's going to be a fairly tricky SQL query, and it's not going to be a lot of fun, even for a seasoned developer. But with LINQ, it's almost like writing a sentence in English. So first, we want to get the customers with orders that are disputed. So we do orders where status is disputed, and select the customers. Then we just want to return all the employees that contain any of those customers that we previously determined. So we just say employees where the employee's sales rep customer contains any of those customers. And then we can just call employees.dump, and that tells LINQPad to print out the result. The combination of EF Core and LINQ makes writing queries so verbose, it's practically like writing a sentence in English, which is why I love it. It's so much cleaner and simpler than writing SQL commands raw. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that brief overview. I hope we can get to the point where when asked a SQL question in an interview, you can acceptably answer with LINQ, but we'll see. Anyway, I'll see you next time.